Episodes 1 through 4 of the anime cover chapters 1 through 17 of the light novel. While the adaptation has been fairly faithful, many world building and character moments were cut, so this video will fill you in on what's missing. Thanks to AniNews for the idea. Check out his channel for more anime content. Episode 1 covers chapters 1 through 4 of the light novel. The biggest things missing from this episode are Belgrieve's backstory, some world building, and some characterization for both Angeline and Belgrieve, who I'll be calling Angie and Belle from here on out. While we already know the circumstances surrounding Belle's retirement, the light novel goes into detail about both his departure and return. Turnera is actually where Belle grew up, and adventurers are looked down upon by the general population as mere ruffians and brigands, despite being an essential part of society due to the fiends. Belle was met with much scorn and was a laughingstock when he returned injured and a failure. The only ones to not treat him poorly were his childhood friends Kenny, the rich farmer, and Hoffman, the new village chief. After helping the villagers with the fiends in the mountains and forests, as well as hunting duties and being a general helping hand, he eventually became a pillar of Turnera village. He even has a Goblin Slayer style routine for checking for fiend incursions, which helped to set the villagers' minds at ease. While Belle finding Angie was adapted very faithfully along with the brief sparring and departure scene, one thing to note is that Angie's black hair was not something seen in Turnera village, marking her as a definite foreigner. Angie is also a prodigy, as we know. At around 8, she could easily beat all the adults in the village save for her father, and would help Belle with hunting fiends and animals in order to prepare her for non-human opponents. And at 12, when first arriving in the guild, she smacked around an entire B-rank party that tried to pick on her before she even registered. Angie's personality before the vacation debacle is also glossed over, specifically how she was described as a woman of few words who always adventured without a party. While she has a party now consisting of 2 other AAA ranked adventurers who we'll talk about later, she climbed to S rank by herself. The boasting of her father was also a very recent development, as her father complex was unbeknownst to everyone around her. Another thing that I'll talk more about later is the goddess Vienna. While she gets no mention in the anime till a line in episode 2, many of the people are quite pious and will often use her name in casual conversation when wishing one well, wishing for prosperity, and other such teachings. There is even a church dedicated to her in Turnera village. Moving to the flash forward to Angie slaying the wyvern, the light novel actually first cuts to Angie receiving the job from the clerk. The anime really downplays how hot-headed both Angie and Belle can be, though they are hot-headed in different ways. In the flash forward, Angie is taking her frustration of not being able to go on vacation out on the guild clerk, even to the point where she slams her fist into the marble countertop, which is wooden in the anime, and shatters it. She calls the adventurers who failed incompetent and pathetic, and after accepting that she'll have to take care of the job, she is incredibly curt and demanding of the clerk. That said, it's also noted that she has never been seen this angry before, so it's likely that this is only the case when it comes to Belle. As for the wyvern fight itself, in the light novel, Angie simply beheaded it in a flash rather than the short team fight we saw in the anime. The receptionist is also the one to give her the ant job, however, save for missing the ant queen getting the fear of God put into her smug bug butt, it's faithful to the light novel. The cart ride and bandit fights were also fairly faithful. In the novel, we find out that Angie didn't just take a single horse to Turnera, as she was afraid of being on galloping horses for long periods of time. The bandits also try to shoot Angie and the merchant first to no avail, and has Saren tied up. Though the biggest misrepresented detail was Angie's ruthlessness, or rather how she was far more patient in the light novel. It's detailed in the novel that while she has killed humans before, she always feels sick afterwards. After giving the brigands multiple warnings to back off, Angie ends up killing all of them when they refuse, rather than how she immediately flew off the handle in the anime. Back to Belle, when he received word that Angie would be coming home only for her to no-show due to her getting more work, he waited worriedly outside the village night after night until he received a letter saying that she had emergency work. Only then did he quit worrying. He also receives word of both the wyvern and ants that Angie took out. In the anime, he's portrayed more as a downer who is a bit pathetic, while in the light novel he is more so fired up and even envious of his daughter, wondering what he'd be like had he never gotten hurt. While he reconciles that he'd have never met Angie, this pushed him to go even harder in his training so as to not get passed up by her. This hot-headedness extended to a bit of a mini arc for Belle. While the anime had him slay some wood monster in order to save the kid, in the light novel it was described as a wolf-like fiend with gray fur known as a greyhound. A little while later, after receiving the long letter from Angie, he gets the chance to hunt a pack of greyhounds alongside an ice hunt. This was completely cut from the anime, and I think it's a shame as it really showcases Belle's character. In the fight, the greyhounds are no match for him as he easily cuts down the entire pack of E-rank monsters. The ice hunt, however, is a B-rank threat that chills the air around it to where it feels like winter in the summertime. Coupled with a deadly ice breath, that's quite a challenge. Due to his disability, Belle focuses on using research on the monster and prep in order to make up the difference, and in this fight he tests a spice pill in order to choke up the fiend before cleanly beheading it. Afterwards, he reflects on how giddy he was over the fight and recognizes just how fired up Anji had him. It is a bit of a shame that these moments were left out, as it does a great job characterizing the two protagonists. With how many fantasy release every season, I think not focusing more on the characters and their personalities does the show a bit of a disservice in terms of separating it from everything else. Nevertheless, there are a few other world-building details left out of the anime. Starting with Turnura, Kenny the farmer is quite well off when we see him after the time skip, creating bustling textile and cheese businesses and even laying the groundwork for a wine industry. He has been giving the village a lot of work and helped to enrich the hamlet. While it's shown a bit in the anime, Bell spends a lot of time teaching the kids swordsmanship, herbalism, and mountaineering. While some do plan to become adventurers, having the next generation be able to defend themselves is his main goal. Moving to Orphan, and specifically Anji's party, in the anime, the most we learn about them is that they are all orphans, but what is left out is that An and Mirim were actually in a party consisting of other kids from the orphanage before teaming up with Anji. The two eventually split off from the group due to an undisclosed difference in opinion though. Episode 2 covers chapters 4 through 8 of the light novel. From here, we'll begin to see a pattern of shifting details, cut chapters, as well as fights being cut very short. In the meeting between Sasha and Bell, the anime leaves out some of the feelings Bell has surrounding Anji's accomplishments, namely feeling a bit of imposter syndrome in being her father. Vienna is also mentioned again, as Sasha uses a euphemism to describe her father's passing, quote, embarking on his journey to almighty Vienna. And afterwards, both her and Bell proceed to draw small crosses in the air. The tea scene between the two is anime only, as in the light novel, she spent a while trying to persuade Bell to take the reward and went to spar with him right afterwards, never entering the house. It's also mentioned that she'd have given him more if not for her family's tight situation. In the spar, it is drawn out far longer than shown in the anime, though Bell's heavy strikes are portrayed well. The fight only comes to an end in the novel when Sasha is completely exhausted to the point where she is wheezing on her knees for a while Bell is only slightly winded. Nowhere near the absolutely devastating decisive victory shown in the anime. Bell's attitude towards the fight was also played up a bit more in the novel, with him being glad for the exercise despite its humbleness. Fast forwarding to when Helvectia, the new countess, tried to bring in Bell by force, in the light novel the guards actually attempted to apprehend Bell, who proceeded to dodge them all for an hour. It was then, after they had all exhausted themselves, that Hell switched to the marriage strategy. Most of the rest of chapters 5 through 7 were adapted faithfully, save for some world building bits that we'll get to. However, chapter 8 is almost completely cut from the anime, with only the end bit being partly preserved. While Anji indeed forces the merchant to hear about her father, we miss out on some characterization of An and Mirim and some party banter. In the light novel, we see more of An's abilities as an archer, including shooting 3 magical exploding arrows at 3 different targets. Upon their return from the spider extermination, we also see a conversation between Anji and the guildmaster Lionel. They discuss the declining adventurer population, how Anji and other adventurers have been put on salary alongside individual compensation for jobs, increased job rewards, and a lot of berating from Anji. The anime also cut the mention of Lionel getting packed up by Anji way back when she was a little girl, climbing the ranks after he tried to put her in her place and humble her a little. While that's all for character moments, there is also some world building that is not covered by the anime. Turn around, a school is also being constructed alongside a renovation of the church. We're also introduced to the head of the church, Maurice, who I doubt will be making an appearance in the anime. In the novel, during the harvest festival being held in Turnura, there is also a bit of a village ritual where the Statue de Vienna is carried out from the church to the square by the young men and decorated with flowers by the children. We see a glimpse of that in the anime, but it's not elaborated on. We also get the mention of the hero blessed by Vienna in the anime, though she isn't brought up again. During said festival, villagers pay homage to Vienna and pray for their ancestral spirits to return and watch over them during the winter. Bell is also noted to be particularly fond of these festivals. Back in the guild, in the light novel, we learn that they plan to keep the marble countertop broken as a monument to one of the black-haired Valkyrie's exploits. Speaking of Anji, her name has spread even to the imperial capital of the empire. Despite most adventurers being unknown or scorned, her reputation tends to precede her. Though even with her influence, it had been half a year since she last attempted to go home. It's also noted that despite her absolutely abundant wealth, she prefers a small room so that everything is within arm's reach. Episode 3 covers chapters 9 through 12 of the light novel. While chapters 10 and 11 were adapted almost 1-to-1, chapter 9 was completely cut, with chapter 12 only featuring Anji's return home, though that was also adapted very faithfully. Starting with what's missing from what did get adapted, the main thing that was cut was just how much the guildmaster Lionel was going through during this whole situation. The guild system in the light novel is described as a web of vested interests, where money takes priority over justice and the safety of the people. guilds have budgets, and those that run them have reputations to uphold, and taking a loss in order to bail out Orphan was not in the other guild's best interests. Most adventurers are very pragmatic and money focused due to the dangers of their job, and will take on jobs for no pay even if it means citizens dying. Lionel had to appeal to the Lord in order for them to mobilize their army alongside getting approvals for all the changes such as salaries in order to retain as many adventurers during the crisis as possible. He avoided talking about everything he was going through though, so as to not sound like he was making excuses, and Anji felt quite a bit more remorseful about how she treated him in the light novel than what was shown in the anime. Moving to the end of the episode, while Anji's reunion with Belle was very well done, we miss out on the interaction between Belle and Sasha, though Sasha's interaction with Anji and her party is adapted in the next episode. In the light novel, before Sasha runs into Anji and company, there is a small tidbit on Turnera's Spring Festival. We also get to see a rematch duel between her and Belle. While she is able to disarm Belle in this fight, she grows complacent and doesn't go for the finish, allowing Belle to catch her off guard, grab her sword arm and twist it, causing immense pain and ending the fight. Belle had acted on instinct and didn't mean to hurt her, as he quickly released her and apologized. Afterwards, there was talk about improving the roads to Turnera as they were difficult to navigate. She especially wanted them done due to the high quality goods at the Harvest Festival. As shown in the anime, the ladies of the Bordeaux house are quite humble and don't like to throw their status around. The novel elaborates on this, explaining that they got their start as, quote, descendants of pioneers who shed sweat with the farmers to develop the land around Bordeaux. These girls were also known to occasionally help farmers with their work when they went on their rounds of the territory. While that fills in everything glossed over by the anime, Chapter 9 went completely unadapted. I'm not sure if this will get adapted in the future though, so for now I plan to hold off on covering it. If it remains unadapted by the end of the season, I'll talk about it then. Episode 4 covers chapters 13 through 17 of the light novel, though the first half of chapter 17 was moved to episode 5. The anime did a very good job adapting chapters 13, 14, and 15, though some tidbits were left out. In the novel, Angie makes a point to give out presents to the children, namely sweets that can only be found in the city. She also calls Kenny fat, though the big stepper brushes it off as he's up now. We also see that when Belle confronts Angie about the nickname, while he does enjoy getting the recognition, he believes that the nickname overvalues his actual skills, though an observation is made by many of those around him that he is incredibly strong, despite how humble he is. When they sit down to eat as a group, Anji, An, and Miriam say a prayer to Vienna before eating, though it's also noted that Belle isn't very pious and tends to offer his thanks to nature instead. We also get Kenny excusing Belle from the town hall to discuss the road renovations, and that Belle legitimately thought that Miriam's ears were cold. Speaking of the Beastmen, the novel goes into a bit more detail on their past and current treatment. Beastmen are incredibly rare and in the past were used as slaves. While the practice is now abolished and blatant discrimination outlawed, many still treat them as either second-class citizens or the object of pity. Being a AAA ranked adventurer, Miriam hides her race so as to not get the looks as she did as a kid, be it scorn or pity, and instead wants to be seen as the powerful magician and adventurer she is. That said, Belle is 100% convinced that she had her hat on due to how cold it is up north. After wiping down, eating, and going to bed, in the novel we also get a small morning patrol scene with Anji and Belle, as well as a small look at Belle's morning training routine. Moving to the end of the episode, we skip over the first bit of chapter 17, and while part of it will get adapted next episode, the ultimatum fight was adapted very faithfully. The moment Anji starts to get upset at Belle's demand, he has to really resist the urge to coddle her immediately. Though this battle isn't the first time Anji has seen him this fierce. But if you want to find out when that happens, subscribe for future cut contents and go buy the light novel.